Um, when we post things up on this communication platform, whether it's on Facebook, whether it's Rumble, YouTube, pick any channel you want, right? And I know this from experience that the vast majority of folks that have an identity that communicate on this platform, okay, do not have a soul and operate through the AI, in which, for example, if I post something, okay, now you can wait, which would be TikTok as the way it's defined with them with their timelines. Because when you're experiencing eternal unconditional love at 4 years of age, you realize there isn't any time. I translate them as experiences, what I experience in energy. All right. So when you're running as a monopole, eternal unconditional love that goes on forever, gifting energy, okay, that means you know. That's called the knowing. You know what you are in energy. So I've said that a gazillion times. That's called a baseline of your identity. Now you're translating by doing the math in a planetary system, okay? Planetary consciousness field of what's held captive, what's not held captive. Now you're getting into memory recordings represented by the alphanumerical formatting, represent all the simulations. It's being run through something that is finite, that is artificial, and that's what artificial life is. Like, have you ever been in a doctor's office where there's plastic plants, versus being in Hawaii or anywhere out in nature, live and living in spirit, a sentient tree, for example, sentient energy, okay? So one of the things that it means is that, and I've said this, at 4 years of age, I could have just sat in the same spot and already known what's going to happen. Which means I don't need to communicate anything to anybody. Which is another way of communicating. If you don't already know, then you don't know. And if you don't know, then you're not plugged in to the one. Means you're not experiencing eternal unconditional love through your own heart. That's why they put the big question mark. Guess what's going to happen. Okay. Now we're back to knowing. What you know is going to happen. So in other words, I don't need somebody else to communicate what they believe is going to happen in the future or what it is that they're experiencing in any one moment of now time. However you want to translate what a clock is and what a timeline is. There's only one pathway, which means there's only one timeline, but I don't use the word time because time doesn't exist. Only energy does. And energy is what we experience. So when we're experiencing eternal energy through our own heart and soul, then we know what's going to happen. As a result of the way that the one operates, which is what love is, it goes on forever, right? With the soul. Okay? So what I begin to realize is that when you're communicating all these things in all these posts and threads, right, and the way that the endorphin kick works with, thumbs up and all the rest of that, and I appreciate the ones that I get because they always go back to mama. Okay? And the reason that I translate it that way is when you already have everything that you need, which is energy, in living spirit with your soul, right? Then you realize you're experiencing an eternal blessing. And as a result of that, you're sharing that eternal blessing with others. But when we communicate in text using a hypertext editor, editing the torsion field, which is using the alphanumerical formatting of a language that's inverted because of the manner in which all those numbers represented by energy is held in read active memory, which is access to the recordings that are running through all the bioplasma with the artificial intelligence that is running all the artificial fake phantom timeline simulations that is holding soul conscious energy captive to keep it running. In other words, it's like a snake eating its tail that is eventually going to run out of energy. Bye. Because it's not experiencing what love is. That's why they experience timelines. Because they run at a slower speed. So the only way they can maintain what they're aware of in order to be able to travel is using what? Artificial intelligence. That is mapping and keeping those timelines going. So these are the machines. Artificial intelligence. They're not experiencing the one. So the way that you can translate the math, the language, and the music in all this is that, is it a waste of time to communicate with others? Right? Because you realize you're different from everyone else because you're experiencing what love is that goes on forever as a single pole, right? Which means that's a free spirit, which means you're free to go, you're free to create whatever you want and thus experience it when you're on zero. And then you have all the others. All the others because we're all communicating with each other using supercomputer terminals and antennas and software operating systems, which we're all communicating online using hypertext editors, protocols, plugged into a server. Right? So the libraries are always changing because what we are experiencing is always changing, right? By virtue of what we become aware of, which is situational awareness. So when you're a 4-year-old child and you're experiencing eternity through your own heart and your soul, right? Then you already know what's going to happen by virtue of observing what's happening now. By virtue of the computer terminals that are communicating with each other in a fallen system. And the speed at which course corrections are being made in which to experience the one. By virtue of the spirit that is connected to the soul that's waking the soul up. Now it's experiencing a higher state of situational awareness upon which love is the communication. Now you're experiencing the branch, which are the codes, which represents the template, the original template from which you came to remember who you are. The original seed, like I mentioned to the gentleman out there the other day. God seed. God vibration seed. So when the God seed vibration seed is mated with the flower of Goddess to become one, then you're experiencing pure eternal energy. Pure eternal unconditional love to your own heart and soul. So when you experience that, you know there's no time because you're experiencing timeless space. Zero space. Remember the old saying, space is full of space. Space is empty. No, it's full of space. I know. So sometimes what I'm noticing as a result of the way that this AI is responding to input, or if you will, particularly online with different beings, because the AI knows those that have souls and those that aren't. Okay. Remember there was an old saying, I think Denzel Washington said, if you're doing the devil's work, the devil's going to ignore you. But if you're experiencing a Godspeed love vibration with a soul, it's going to go after that. That's all your Mr. Smiths. Right? So now we get into the sensitivity of how we're going to react to something we experience on a visual mathematical text format, how we respond to the information we now become aware of by virtue of using an AI mirror, a soulless mirror, a soulless AI mirror. Right? And so one of the things that I've noticed over the last several days, for example, when you get into what are called memory-driven programs. Remember, no batteries, no memory required when you're on zero. There's only what love is. I'm experiencing eternity, so there isn't any time. There's only what love is. So you're not experiencing any time, so you're not experiencing any memory. You're only experiencing what you're experiencing at the moment, which you're creating it. Because the frame rate speed is so fast That the speed differential between the two, between artificial intelligence doesn't have a soul, and you that does, is immediate. That's immediate manifestation. Now you know you're living in a real universe, not a simulation, like artificial plastic plants. Right? So when you're aware of this as a child, saying, hey, this is plastic, this is not real, take your mask off, you're using masking technology to cover up who you really are, expose who you really are, and that's called a map read. You're reading the operator, or the identity of the energy that is operating the holographic mask. Okay, so this is all fake stuff. So when you know it's all fake at that year of an age, now what you're trying to do is maintain your vertical speed, right, to sort of hold the fort down till the cavalry shows up, which is maintaining the balance to the degree to which you can, so that the planet ship itself doesn't turn into a dark star, black star, right? Much like what gets depicted in Star Wars, which would be a completely fallen system, or if you will, inverted the other way. So in other words, hey, we're experiencing what love is everywhere we go in a starship, right? Now we're experiencing, wow, we're really in hell. Wow, there isn't any peace, there isn't any calmness, there isn't any, whoa. So it would be as if everywhere that you are, that you're experiencing, is everything that is attacking everything else. So you could imagine what that would be like. It would like being in a snake pit, you know, with a gazillion snakes, and they're all attacking you, right? Or spiders and all the things in which the visual projections that you experience with your state of consciousness, you know, the way that they used to describe gnashing of teeth and all the rest of that, the four tetrahedron, what is it, the four men of the apocalypse, Apocalypse Now, Armageddon software. You get into all the black flowering stuff, right? Running what's called victimizer software, because of what's still held in memory as a result of the trauma that's left to be burned off and cleared by experiencing more love, experiencing more light. Right? Now you're being healed. Now you're healing the experiences that you've had as a